How's everybody doing this humid Minnesota day? I can't see everybody. Hey, Will, I haven't seen you in a long time. How's it going in Richfield?
Hi, Alyssa. Yeah, pretty good. Recovered a stolen bike this morning. And I'm doing fine because I don't have curly hair. So the humidity is not bothering me whatsoever.
Good for you. Happy to hear that. Cool.
Good morning, Alyssa.
Good morning, Jill. How's it going? It looks cool where you are. Now I can see your video. You're popping at the top of the screen.
Yes. Well, I mean, I've got the air conditioning on. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
I didn't even know it was hot outside. That's how hard my air conditioning is blowing right now.
It's the temp's not bad. I went for a walk and I mean, it took me a long time to stop sweating. I said it out loud to everybody, deal with it.
I was waiting for you to drop. It's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Well, but it was, but seriously, it was like, this is just straight muggy, man. Anyway.
Hey, Sophie. Long time no see.
Hi, everyone. I know, a long time. So
What's going on?
Not too much. It's cold. I'm up in Wisconsin, so Lake Superior makes everything cold.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish it was warmer.
But if we can't complain about the weather, how are the bugs? Are there mosquitoes? Can we? I'm just checking off my list of.
Right. There's not too many mosquitoes, not too many black flies. It's pretty great, actually. Also, lovely to see you on the call, Jill.
I'm trying to hop back in a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's nice to see everybody. I've missed everyone. It's not nearly as fun anymore. Not this. This is super fun. Like the other stuff, not as fun.
Cool. Well, I think we still got some folks trickling in, but since it's coming up on 5 after, I think I will get us started this morning. Welcome everybody to the July Minnesota Safe Routes to School Network call. Excited to have you all here this morning. And excited that Dave is gonna get us thinking about the fall already, the cool fall air. That's the thing I'm channeling this morning. So my name is Alyssa Shuffman. I use she and they pronouns. I work at Move Minnesota. We help facilitate these calls. My partner in mischief, Julie, is doing all of the amazing tech stuff on the back end. So you'll see Julie popping up in the chat throughout the meeting. And then as always, Dave is our great co-host. So I'm doing a lot of presenting today. So the Minnesota Safe Routes to School Network is a network of folks across Minnesota working on safe routes to school implementation and projects. The network here is about building skills across those communities in Minnesota, supporting partnerships among state and local agencies, municipalities, other jurisdictions, advocacy organizations, everybody who wants walking and biking to schools to be a better experience for kiddos. So that's a little bit about the network. You can read the whole slide if you would like to. For our time today, as I mentioned, I'm doing the welcome. Hello. And then we're going to get a short MnDOT update from Dave before Dave guides us through some thinking about summertime planning for fall engagement. And then we're going to do some discussions in breakout groups. So we'll spend probably 15 or so minutes in breakout groups, and then we'll have a little bit of time to come back together at the end just to hear what everybody talked about and share some of the wisdom that you all will surface in your discussions. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and flip it over to Dave, if that feels all right to you, Dave.
That feels great. Hey, folks. Dave Cowan here, Safe Routes Coordinator over at MnDOT. The second half of this, just to get your juices flowing, is small breakout groups talking a little bit about what you have in store for the fall. Perhaps any ideas that might pop into your head during my presentation, and a chance to kind of bounce those off of each other and see if we might be able to do some skill sharing. So I should probably present my screen here. I don't know how many of you have ever tried to go off of coffee before. But I chose to do that this week. And so if I feel a little overly mellow or perhaps have trouble like piecing together sentences and thoughts, I'm going to blame it entirely on trying to do that. So it's July. We're all, I don't know where you all are, but oftentimes feeling a little bit like it's a lull in the Safe Routes to School world. And so we thought it would be useful for the network call today to really help people use that lull to start thinking about the next school year, being strategic and hopefully maybe a little less reactive in our approaches to getting kids walking and biking to school. So we'll run through, everybody's seeing my screen, right?
We are seeing your screen. I'm seeing your screen. I can't speak for everybody.
I
but
am too.
Other people.
Which screen are you seeing? Maybe is a better question. Is it just one big slide right now?
I can see your toolbar, and then it says tools to kickstart the school year for better walking and biking, and it's one big slide.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. So where was I? Oh, a couple of the things that we'll run through. We'll talk just maybe about some ideas for off-season strategies that you might be jumping into. And then if you haven't been introduced to two tools that we have here available for you at MnDOT to think about your work, I'm going to do a little bit of walking through those and show you, how they work, but also how they might be applied to the work that you're doing. So a lot of you here are the experts on this, but I thought I would drop a couple of ideas for things that you might be working on. If you're a Safe Routes to School coordinator at the district level, if you're a SHIP coordinator, working with multiple school districts, or if you're an RDC planner that might be supporting schools through the planning process this fall, or maybe you're working with communities on some aspect of implementation. A couple of items that are great to be working on in July is, first of all, it's when schools in the next month and a half will be sending out mailings to parents about transportation. And usually that is primarily focused on busing and what buses students will be taking, but it is also an opportunity that is often missed with school districts to be talking about how students walk and bike to school. So reaching out to your superintendent or transportation director to ask questions about what's planned for that and see if you might be able to get your foot in the door is a good use of July time. Similarly, the school PTO newsletter kind of and PTO, well, is kind of on a break, is a good chance to get them thinking about how they'll be communicating about Safe Routes to School related events, similar questions around transportation. And if you're in a community where you're organizing walking school buses or bike trains, working with the PTO this early on is a great connection to be making. Dropping on your calendar those school events, the meet the teacher events or the back to school day events. Sometimes when we're late to the game with thinking about safe routes and we've taken the summer off, we come in just as all of these events are happening and we miss an opportunity maybe to be tabling there and using some engagement tools around safe routes to school, or even getting some of our evaluation tools, our parent surveys out in front of parents and asking them questions about how they feel about their student walking and biking to school. And well, walking school buses and bike trains are a lot easier when you have identified staff and volunteers to help with those. We found some success with organizing families so that they can organize their own walking school buses and bike trains. I've mentioned this on here before that my kids in Minneapolis public schools this past year, there was like with many of you, there was a transportation debacle and buses weren't happening and parents were at a loss for what to do. And so one of the successful strategies we were able to implement was just pulling together workshops with parents that were interested in addressing those transportation issues. And it really in my kids' school formed a series of pods of parents that work together to walk and bike with the kids. They formed their own walking school buses and bike trains and organize those on their own, both in response to the busing issue, but also just ended up being long-term throughout the remainder of the school year and hopefully into future ones. Ensuring if you have a safe routes to school plan that identifies key crossings, or even if you don't, utilizing our crossing guard training or our online student safety patrol training to get in front of school folks that are in charge of those, to make sure that if they are using crossing guards and school patrol, that they have an easy and fast way to get trained. And if they don't, to start asking questions about why they don't and perhaps help them build a program at their district or school. And of course, you know, figuring out how to get walk bike fun taught inside of the school, I think should be on everybody's checklist for the school year. There's a lot of curriculum planning that goes on in August. If you're wanting to see, or the community, the Safe Routes to School plan, or the community would like to see walk and bike safety education in the classroom, now is the time to figure out how to reach out to your physical education teachers, or if you have a school that's resistant to using that time for PE, to connecting with your community education or after school programs to see if they might be interested. I know that I was just talking to Angela at the Bike Alliance yesterday, who was telling me that the Parks and Recs folks here are, you know, super interested and much easier to access than teachers in some cases. And so they've been working with them to get them trained up on teaching during, I don't know if it's like Minneapolis Kids or something like that. So there's a lot of things that, this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure you've got lots of ideas. I hope you will bring some of those to our kind of our small group conversations here in a little bit, but hopefully this helps get your brains bubbling. And then I wanted to talk about how to plan for some of the grant solicitation opportunities that I just wondered if I said something like if Julie, were you expecting me to swear or something? What just happened?
No, sorry. A tech issue. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
It's all good. Anyway, you know, this is a good time of year to be looking at Safe Routes to School plans related to schools that are in your kind of area of influence, to be coordinating with Safe Routes to School plans. And one way to do that is through using these two tools that I'm getting ready to talk about. And Julie, or Julie, if you don't mind checking me on the time, if I'm getting a little too windy, just let me know and I'll move faster. So a few years back, we developed our Visualizing Safe Routes to School in Minnesota tool. We did it because we were receiving all kinds of questions related to what was going on with Safe Routes. People wanted to know how we were using funding. They wanted to know what demand for Safe Routes looked like. In some cases, there were principals turning over or ship staff, and they wanted to know, hey, does this community have a Safe Routes to School plan? Have they done any prior work related to Safe Routes to School? Are there any plans that might, for project managers at MnDOT, there were people asking if there were any Safe Routes to School work that might affect a road project that they were getting ready to work on. So there were a lot of questions, and we were trying to figure out how we could answer all of those in one place and in an easy and accessible way for you all. And so we kind of moved forward on developing our visualizing tool. And it was really intended to address a series of audiences from folks here internally at MnDOT, to be something that all of you could use in your work, as well as elected officials and school staff and shoot, maybe even students. So the goal was to take everything that had happened at the beginning of the Safe Routes to School program in 2005 and put that in one place. Well, the goals are over here on the right. I won't read those to you. But ultimately it ended up looking like this. And I think Julie's going to drop a link to it, but I chose to do it in a PowerPoint here because I was worried about how fast my internet would be. So you're welcome to like click that up on another screen and poke around while I talk if that's helpful. But otherwise I'll be kind of talking through the visualizing tool here on on my PowerPoint. What you're looking at right now is super confusing and hard to know what's going on, but this is with all different activities related to Safe Routes to School that are populated for the state of Minnesota in the tool. But really, some of the usefulness of the tool is in the nuance of the layers that you're able to kind of strip away or add depending on what you're looking for. So one layer you can add will draw some boundaries around the MnDOT construction districts. That's useful for some folks. Another layer, let me back up for a second. Can you all see my cursor? Okay, so if you're wanting to add and subtract layers, you do that by clicking right here, and you'll see more about that in a second, but a layer will kind of be added or subtracted based on whether or not you check the box. So you can add MnDOT construction districts. You can add the boundaries for SHIP grantees or SHIP boundaries. You can add all of the schools in Minnesota. You can, in addition to that, add all of the school districts as lines. And you could, of course, add all of these at the same time, but it gets very difficult to look at unless you're zoomed in on a specific place. If you're an advocate or working with the legislature, you can add Senate and House districts to try and show our representatives what kind of Safe Routes to School work has been going on in their districts. If you're a regional development organization planner or staff, you can add those to kind of poke around and see what communities in your region have been up to. Additionally, you can add tribal nations to see what kind of work has been happening there. But I thought it would be useful to do just a quick case study to show you how that might be helpful. So first of all, I mentioned that you can add layers. You'll see that in a second. But sometimes you might lose track of like, what does the pink line around all of these mean? And at any point in time, you can click on this legend right here, and it'll show you, the layers that you have selected and kind of what's being represented there. So you can see here that the pink, anything in a pink polygon is a SHIP area. But let's say you're working on SHIP, and maybe you're new to an area and you're trying to figure out what's going on. You can pull down this layer list, and it has all sorts of things in it. It has, schools that have registered for Walk and Bike to School Day events. It has individuals that have been trained in the Walk Bike Fun curriculum. It has host sites that we've hosted Walk Bike Fun trainings. It has funded Safe Routes to School projects, and those are broken out into the different types of projects that you might see coming from MnDOT, but also, in the case that we know about it, we've included funded Safe Routes to School projects that were not funded by MnDOT, including plans. So if I'm working on SHIP, I might want to select, participation in Walk and Bike to School Day events. That might show me schools that have had interest in the past in walking and biking. I might select the Walk Bike Fun trainees and host sites to see if something's been hosted in the recent history, or maybe there's a bunch of trainees that happen to live in the town that you don't know about, and there might be an opportunity to talk with the Bicycle Alliance about who those folks are and how they might be drawn in to help with, bike fleet related activities or something like that. So you can click it. This is, like I mentioned, very confusing when you have everything selected, but kind of figuring out what you're looking for and selecting one at a time and going through and looking is a much cleaner way of doing it. But for our case study, we're going to say we're working down in Mankato area. We're a new SHIP coordinator. Up in the upper left-hand corner here, you can see you can search for any city, school, and maybe even county. I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. And just to note that if you don't like the base map, hey, you can change it over here. Maybe you're picky about that kind of thing. But this is what we have as our default. So let's see, let me catch up with myself. We're down in Blue Earth County. You can add that layer and click on it here. And when you click on it, this little box pops up and tells you everything related to that layer that you have selected. So now we know we're in Blue Earth. And maybe we're curious what school districts are that fall inside of Blue Earth. So we can add the school district layer by going up here and adding it. You can see now these blue lines are outlining each school district that falls inside of Blue Earth County. And you can click on each individual school district and see the information that MDE has provided us that we have in there related to the school district. Next, you can jump over to the layer list, and maybe you want to see what's happened in the past with MnDOT. What have these communities received in terms of funding? And so you select that, and now you're looking at, if you can see the legend next to here, you're seeing the green circles are where there's been planning. These blue squares are where you're seeing some infrastructure projects that have been funded. Purple circles is kind of an other non-infrastructure, and bicycle fleets. So now you can see, oh, there's been some activity. Great. That's nice to know that people are working on safe routes to school down here in Blue Earth. Like, how can I be supportive? You're not sure. Well, one way to do that is you go and you might, what are we looking at here? I think we're clicking on, I got too many monitors, people, and not enough coffee. So you're able to click on this district, and if you'll notice up here, it has all these projects in here. We've selected the school district, and now you've got one of 21 different projects that you can click through specific to that school district, and you can see everything that school district has received over time, or any layers that are associated with it. Let's see. And as I mentioned, at any point in time, you can click on the legend and see what any of those icons might mean. You can zoom in on the projects here. So if you're looking at the North Mankato area, let's say you want to be working in this school district, these green circles are where there's been safe routes to school planning done. When you click on those green circles, the information related to that safe routes to school award comes up. You'll see that it's been awarded in 2012. It's a non-infrastructure project, the name of the school, the enrollment at the time, the free and reduced lunch percentage. But also, if you scroll down, you'll see that in the case that they've, let's see, there we go. Yeah, in the case that they have both received funding to a safe routes to school plan and have completed it, that you can scroll down to this plan section and click on more info, and it'll actually open up the safe routes to school plan for that school. There are some cases where we've made an award and they haven't completed their plan yet. That link isn't available yet. But in most cases, you can get at the safe routes to school plan. And if you're trying to figure out how you can best support safe routes to school teams, most of these plans in the first couple pages have a list of everybody that was involved in developing the safe routes to school plan. You can also flip through it and see if it's a recent one, you can see what they're up to and what they're interested in doing and think about how you might support that. Or if it's an old one, you can look and see what's been completed and what is still on the punch list there that you might be able to help support.
Dave, I'm going to time check you. You got about 5 minutes left.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go fast. I'll go fast. So that's one way to be looking for opportunity when there's work that's already occurring. You can use the tool that way. Another way that you can do it is you can add all school layers when you have this populated. Now you can see all those gray dots are where there are schools that have done nothing related to safe routes to school that we know about here at MnDOT. They haven't applied for anything. They haven't participated in walk and bike to school day events. Maybe those are good places to reach out and talk to school leadership about participating. Additionally, you can add a layer on there that is unfunded safe routes to school projects. It's these like slightly bigger gray circles. You'll see places where somebody may have had enough interest to apply for an infrastructure grant but didn't receive it. And in many cases, they decided to not pursue it beyond that, and it might be worth reaching back out and seeing if they're aware of upcoming grant opportunities or not, or if it might be useful to go through a planning process. So I'm going to speed through because I do have one other thing here. So it can also be used by MnDOT project managers that might be working on, the redevelopment of, a piece of our trunk highway, looking to see what schools might be near it and looking at their plans to see if there was any issues that were called out that might be able to be addressed when we're working on those pieces of the trunk highway. I mentioned a legislature or constituent can learn more about what's going on with safe routes in their area, how those tax dollars are being put to use. That an RDC planner can look at where plans have been done and schools where there haven't been any done. So you can look at those gray dots and think, maybe these folks would be interested in applying for planning assistance this year. I should do a little bit of outreach to them. A couple of additional uses, you can look strictly at bike fleet use. You can, if your bike fleet isn't getting a lot of use, you can see where there's been some Walk Bike Fund trainees. You can see where bike fleets are. Maybe you can help coordinate the use of a bike fleet across school districts or schools or even counties in some cases. You can use it to take a look at Walk Bike Fund trainings, which ones have happened, which ones where there are trainees. I've mentioned that earlier. And then there's a second tool that we're slowly integrating into the visualizing tool. So I'll stop talking about the visualizing tool. Hopefully that's useful for you. I'll answer anything that comes up for you for questions in the chat, if that's helpful. And then I wanted to mention that the Student Transportation Equity for Priority Populations tool, which those of you that have applied for a grant recently are familiar with, it is a mouthful, so we call it the STEP tool. Has in the past been operating kind of separately, and we're transitioning it into the visualizing tool so that you can overlay it as a layer in the future. What is it? It is a tool that we developed a couple of years back now that uses 7 weighted criteria for establishing a qualitative equity score for schools. That's everything from free and reduced price lunch, percentage of students who are people of color, English language learners, households with access to 1 or 0 motor vehicles, all weigh in on helping a school zero in on what their equity score is. And our intent here was to implement what we heard in our 2020 strategic planning process, which is ensuring that we were identifying the communities were having higher concentration of these priority populations, and then making sure that our tools, resources, and funding were being prioritized for those locations. If you're looking to the fall to apply for things, a reason that might be useful to jump into the equity tool here, the STEP tool, and take a look at how your schools might rank, is that if you have limited time and 4 schools that you could be potentially supporting, and one of them has a much higher equity score, it might be beneficial to focus your work on working with that school to help them with an application or to help them with their Safe Routes to School plan. And it's important because, as you can see here on the screen, in the past solicitation that we had, we used the equity score to apply a significant amount of points to applications. With the non-infrastructure applications, it was 30 to 40% of the total application points were related to the equity score. Mitch is on the call, and maybe you can put this in the chat. I think it was about 30% for our state-funded infrastructure. It's not currently in use with our TA solicitations, but maybe in the future. And then our Walk Bike Fund technical assistance, fleet access, and training, that is all when things are lean and we don't have as many resources, that is being used there to prioritize who's able to access that as well. So 2 big tools that you could be looking at here in July and August, maybe to help think about the upcoming solicitation, but also thinking about how you might support schools in your area over the coming school year. Did I come in on time?
You did. We've got just a few minutes booked for questions. And I guess I'll ask the first question because I'm super curious. How often are these tools updated? Like, is this
Yeah.
I see a lot of the points of information have specific years attached. So just wondering who's updating that and how often?
Yeah, we update that annually. So, and we, so we update that annually.
Great. And then I see Jill put a note in the chat asking if any other states have cool tools like these.
I haven't heard of them. Some of them do use, I haven't heard of anybody that has something like the visualizing tool. Some other states do use equity in their scoring for their application process, but I don't know that it's been quite represented the way that we do here with GIS.
Groundbreaking tools, very cool. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but if folks have them, please note them. One other thing I was curious about, Dave, you mentioned that early on in the visualizing tool, you were talking about how, you note Safe Routes to School projects, that MnDOT has put funding towards, and then also projects that other folks have funded, if you're aware of them. If someone is like aware of a piece of information that they think should be reflected on the tool like that, what do they do?
Yeah, great question. It happens all the time, particularly because, the statewide health and is it program now, or is it program? Somebody nod for me. Partnership. Thank you, Allie. Statewide Health Improvement Partnership often funds things like bike fleets that kind of fly under the radar and we won't hear about them. So if you are poking around on here and you know of a bike fleet that we don't have represented on here, there is an email address, I think, at the just underneath the map on the website where you can send that kind of information to. And we will we'll integrate it as soon as possible.
Cool. Thanks, Dave. What a wealth of information. I feel like you could spend days on that tool and just
maybe too much information. I do that sometimes. Sorry about that.
Luckily, you can turn bits and pieces of it off. So, cool. Well, with that, I think it is time for us to flip over to our discussion in breakout groups. Julie has just put a link in the chat with some questions. They're just guiding questions to think about, what we might discuss in small groups and how we might surface some of the wisdom you all have about the work you're doing. So Julie is gonna bust us all into breakout groups. We'll talk for about 15 minutes. And then we'll come back and folks will be invited to share some highlights from discussions. So with that, hopefully the technology will work the way it's supposed to. And Julie's going to send us all into breakout groups. I will see you all, and some of you shortly and some of you in about 15 minutes.
Did you guys get a message about a breakout group? I maybe didn't join. Hold on, let me put you guys in a breakout. Mitchell and Allie, were you guys put into breakout groups?
Hey everybody, welcome back. I see folks are all rejoining. Would love to spend just a few minutes before we wrap up, hearing if there's any highlights from any of the small group discussions. Anybody from my group want to go first? Just popcorn around. We had a lot of discussion about stolen bikes. I don't know if like Will or Luke, you want to talk a little bit about that? All right, I can talk a little bit about it. I just thought it was really interesting that like that, as someone who has had a bike stolen as a kid and like didn't have any resources around it, and certainly nobody at school talked to me about it. There's a really cool resource called Project 529 where folks in any jurisdiction can register their bike, and that was part of how Will recovered a stolen fleet bike this morning. And we had a lot of good discussion about doing demos on Better Locks, thinking about how to incorporate some of those tools and respond to like parent concerns around bike theft. So I thought that was a really cool tool share, in addition to some of the ones we talked about as a larger group. Yes, Dave, I agree. Stolen bikes are in fact the worst. Let's see.
I can share from our group, which the two highlights. Mitch was in our group. Spoiler, he gave some inside scoop. Whatever. But we had a question about kind of the usefulness of an engineering study, and basically that can sometimes in the state aid world, that's, Mitch, correct me if I'm oversimplifying, but really is almost better than a safe routes plan and does position folks well for infrastructure funding. So that might be something that is helpful in some of the work up in the HRDC region. And then also Tina shared a really awesome demonstration project in Lake City. And it was just fun to see that. So we were talking a little bit about that and what it took to get that in place. So
the link is in the chat. So it's pretty cool. Took a while with COVID. Patience is the key with most of these projects.
Patience and persistence.
I can share from our breakout room. Oh, sorry. So we just talked a lot about, well, something that came up was just kind of the challenges, trying to generate some ideas about how to engage teachers, especially during their off time when a lot of us are still working and trying to generate excitement about this. Another thing that came up was talking about like transportation or bus safety week, and just about like how right now there is a kind of like should aspect of biking and walking education, but it's not required. So are there resources that are kind of like ready-made, easy to access that we could offer or scrounge for in order to make that more appealing and easier for folks to utilize in addition to their bus safety? So those are two kind of highlights that came up. Oh, and Joanne shared a resource on some lawn signs that she made. I don't know if you want to talk about those, Joanne, or if they're a secret, but that was another resource that came up.
Not a secret, they're posted on Basecamp, and they are just meant to place around a school. Like if you can map out a walking loop around the school and school grounds where kids can see examples of a good crosswalk, signage. The lawn signs on one side have a picture for kids to look at, and on the back side it's talking points for the teacher to talk about transportation safety. So we piloted it during Bike Week and plan to get it out again during Walk to School Week. So if anybody's interested, they're just available on Basecamp.
Awesome. And I'm not sure, Angela, if your group took notes in the doc, but it would be great if there would be like if we could get that Basecamp link in the notes doc, so that we'll send that out.
I emailed them to you. Sorry, I didn't take it in the back, but
yeah, that's perfect. I'll stick them all in there. Alyssa or Dave, you want to share any highlights?
Yeah, I can go. My group talked a lot about engagement. In terms of long-term engagement, we talked about how not disappearing after the plan is done, and focusing a lot more on engagement and encouragement projects rather than just focusing on infrastructure projects to help keep the momentum going, since infrastructure can take a really long time to implement. So really focusing on those encouragement and engagement projects. We also talked about the importance of a community champion, so someone that's well known and respected in the community to kind of help get schools on board, and kind of get the schools engaged, just kind of having that champion in the community. So those are two highlights.
Awesome. Yes, Dave agrees. So much great conversation. You're up.
We had some discussion around using Walk to School Day to leverage a infrastructure project that has been installed with ribbon cutting around the Walk to School Day. It was Patrick working on that out in Frazee. Dakota County was looking at doing a kind of like a 3-year plan or like county level position to support the 10 districts working on Safe Routes implementation of their plan. Not yet final, but hopes and dreams and whatnot. We spent some time talking about how to organize families for to connect them with each other to do walking school buses and bike trains. How MDH is pretty excited to be reporting out what local public health staff will be working on Safe Routes to School as a part of their new 3-year plans, which it used to be 1 year, which gave them less time to kind of gain the momentum that they maybe need to be successful in some of these strategies. And then some of those beginning of the school year things. So transportation mailers, prepping for transportation safety week, and like thinking about how, there was a lot of talk about turnover both here and in our group and how you deal with that, and thinking about how maybe policy might, policy changes at either the district or school level might support ongoing pedestrian and bicycle safety education or even transportation safety weeks.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited we have a notes document because it sounds like all these conversations were super, super rich, and I wish I'd been able to participate in all of them. With that, we're a minute from the hour, so I'm going to close us out by sharing my screen, if I can remember how to do that. With a couple announcements. Just a reminder that our great partners over at Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota have their monthly Bike Walk Leadership Network webinar. They're going to be talking about bikeable community workshops in just a couple weeks. So if you're interested, please sign up. And if you have any questions, feel free to ping Natalie on their team. Also a reminder about Walk Bike Fun and educator trainings. You can still sign up for educator trainings. And so if you are interested in having educators trained on the Walk Bike Fun curriculum, please check out the website. And please join us for a future call. We have calls every month. They're really great. I'm very excited to be part of them. So we'll have our next call in August. Hopefully it'll be a little less humid, but they are always the first Thursday of the month. So mark your calendars and we hope to see you for the next one. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I hope you have a lovely rest of your Thursday, and we will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.